Welcome to today's edition of Pegasus Test. On today's edition, we're going to cover lessons learned. Yes, that's right. I know the coronavirus isn't over at the time of filming this. Matter of fact, it seems to be on the upward swing. But our behavior as a society has proven that there's lessons to be learned here. And some of those lessons are particular to the firearms community, especially the new people that have joined us in this community. To the new members of the firearms community, again, I say welcome aboard. If you have not seen my video about your responsibilities as a new firearms owner, please check out the link below in the description box. Go and review that because I think it's good information for you. But now, as the crisis is going on, you've had time to contemplate your purchase, and you realize going forward you're going to need some training, and we mentioned that in our previous video. But also there's the logistics of the firearm that you need. And that is safe storage, and also we've done a video on that previously. Please also check that out in the description box. And you need to decide what is your safe storage. Here we are, or hopefully by the time this video gets out, we are in the aftermath of the epidemic, and your need for that firearm has hopefully gone down. Hopefully now what you're going to do with this firearm is put a lot of effort into learning it and preparing for the next emergency, because there will be one. It might be a pandemic again, it might be a natural disaster, it might be something political, but whatever it'll be, it will happen again. And now is the time to become prepared, okay? When you purchased your firearm, you may or may not have been able to get ammunition for it. And if you were, you got what was available. And from what I heard from gun store owners at the time, people they just said, I bought a 9mm, I want some 9mm. And they just sold them whatever they happened to have in stock. And the buyer didn't really care, he just knew he wanted some as much as the store owner would let him have. And you probably also learned as you went to get ammunition that it was getting rationed, there wasn't enough of it, the price was hideously expensive, and you kind of got sticker shock, at least at an absolute minimum. The second thing that probably happened to you is 9mm, for example, is an incredibly generic statement. There are all kinds of 9mm rounds. There's these different weights of bullets. There are frangible rounds. There are subsonic rounds. There are personal defense rounds. There's ball rounds. There's target rounds and range ammo. What's it all mean? Well, now, at the time of this video, it's your time to learn that. And it's time to learn, as you learn to use your firearm, what kind of ammunition you need to fit your reasons for having that firearm. You know, one of the things that you should consider is, now that you have the firearm, are you going to go ahead and get a concealed handgun permit? I hope you do. I think every responsible citizen should. But if you decide to do that, you need to look into, well, what kind of ammunition am I going to carry in my sidearm? Depending on the state you live in, that may be dictated to you by your local government. Check your local laws. But you'll have to find out that, does that ammo that you decided that's hideously expensive, I mean a 20-round box of hollow point ammunition of some type can be a $30 investment, over $1 a round. And the first thing that's going to occur to you with it, that, wow, that's expensive, and wow, the 25-round box fills up one magazine and doesn't leave much for the second. So you're not going to be going out and shooting a lot of it, but you do need to shoot some of it. You need to know that that round you have selected functions in your firearm. Because if you're going to conceal carry it or you're using it for home defense, you're betting your life on that round. You better make sure it works in the firearm. You know, and you go, but it's $30 for a box, or possibly even more. For a box of 25, I can't expend that many rounds. Well, you know what? 30 bucks to bet your life on seems like kind of a worthwhile investment. Buy a box, when the opportunity comes, fire it off, make sure it works. If it works, great. And you like the recoil around, the gun likes it, you can deal with it, go buy more of it. How much more? Yeah, great question. Once again, your personal requirements come into play. But a good rule of thumb is, hey, if I'm carrying my type of firearm, let's use for argument's sake a Glock 19 that carries 15 rounds, well, one 25-round box will give you 15 rounds and 10 spares. But if you decide that you're going to carry a spare magazine, okay, now you don't have enough ammo, you need more. Also, you have to figure, God forbid you have to use that firearm to defend yourself, and you bought, hey, two 25-round boxes, and you got in a gunfight and you expended one magazine's worth. You have to be able to replenish that magazine because you don't know if you're going to need it again. You know, depending on the situation you do it, yes, it could be in a concealed carry situation outside your local big box store. The police respond immediately. It's a justifiable shoot. They still take your handgun. So no, you don't need any more ammunition at that point. You need another gun. But if it's in a, say, post-storm situation where there's just no law enforcement around, you've defended your home and you've expended that magazine, but you got nothing else for it now. Now you're defenseless, see? That's the equation you have to come up with of how much of these rounds do you need. You do have to practice with these highly expensive rounds, as I mentioned before, to make sure they function in the gun, but so you know where they impact on the target and so you know what it feels like to fire those rounds. Now, to get your general practice in, range or target ammunition has a whole lot more a play to you, and most likely a box of 50 target range rounds will cost less than a box of 20 personal defense rounds. You need to know how much of that you need, and that's going to be dictated by how often you practice. This is where also your wallet's going to come into play, because if you decide that you are going to practice, and I highly encourage you to do that, but if you're going to practice regularly, you're going to consume ammunition regularly. You've already figured out that, hey, ammunition's expensive, and it may not be available, and you have to plan for that. This crisis, by the time you're watching this video, is hopefully past. Eventually, sometime after, forbearing no political or natural disasters, the manufacturers will have caught up with demand, and not only that, they'll probably overproduce based on previous history, and the prices will drop. Right now I'm seeing prices of $450 to $495 for a case of 9mm, case being 1,000 rounds of range ammunition. Before this crisis, you know, you were getting ripped off any number you paid over 300. So you can see how prices can increase. When the prices come back down, that's when you need to stock up. And stocking up's not a one-time thing. You know, if you're practicing regularly, you say, you know what, once a month I will make sure I go to the range and I will expend 100 to 150 rounds practicing specific things. Okay, that's great, that's a good program, you should do that. But if you buy 1,000 rounds at 100 rounds each, okay, 10 months later you're out of ammo. You constantly kind of need to be watching the deals, so when ammo's low, you can stock up a lot. And then also realize as the price is going up, you know, tailor your training a little bit. If you get in the habit of going of just 250 rounds, 250 rounds, 250 rounds, and a lot of what you're doing is just making noise, you know, tailor your training back so you're not expending as much, so you're not, when the panic comes, forced to buy ammunition. Another thing to consider, if you've purchased a firearm during the crisis, and you bought it for the crisis, and now the crisis is over, and let's say you've gone out and practiced. This time we'll use the example of a AR-15. You know, you've practiced, and now you're starting to find out about things about the rifle you'd like to change to make it work better for you. This is a great idea. I highly encourage you to do this. At the same time, now before the next crisis is when you want to do that. For instance, you bought the plain Jane AR-15 and it came with the most basic iron sights, and you're like, you know, I need some type of red dot optic. You've done your research, you found the optic you want. Well, now that optic, it's not magic. When you put it on the rifle, it doesn't automatically make you better, faster, uber super ninja guy. No, it has to be zeroed. And an unzeroed red dot on your rifle is pointless. It's worse than nothing, because you point the dot at the target and your rounds are hitting way off to the side or over, or you don't even know where they're going, depending on what you're shooting at. You have to zero that red dot, and that has to be done prior to the next emergency, because one of the things we're finding out in this emergency, there's no place to go and shoot. In my state, the indoor ranges have been closed. Everybody's required to stay home. You can't go out to a field and practice. You know, you're not supposed to be traveling, you know, and you might say, hey, I'm willing to take the risk, but people around you, you know, you might be one of those people who say, no, I'm going to stay indoors until this whole thing's over, until the worst of it's done. Well, if you're stuck indoors with your AR-15, you're not zeroing it and practicing with it, and it's not going to do you any good should the most unfortunate circumstances come your way. So, say you want to change out your handguards to a free float rail. Okay, that's a good idea. I would not discourage anybody from doing that if they feel that's the need. That's a whole lot more involved than just switching from one type of handguard to another type of handguard. That may require gunsmithing services. Okay, when the next disaster comes around, One of the people that might be out of business is the gun store. You see in some states, gun stores have been deemed non-essential businesses. In a storm or natural disaster, the gun store might be one of the places that got destroyed or rendered unable to open. That's something that if you need the services of a gunsmith, you need to do it when things are not bad. When things are good, you need to be thinking about the next time. And that's the constant theme here. You need to be thinking about the next time. Another thing that you need to think about, when you purchased your firearm, if you purchased a handgun, you got 2, possibly 3 magazines with it. Hopefully you got 3. If you purchased a rifle, you may have gotten 1. They don't all come with 1. Usually they do. But what it comes with varies greatly. Using the AR-15 as an example again, I have seen where you get a 10-round magazine with your rifle, or you get one 30-round magazine, depending on the state you live on, and that's it. I have never seen rifles, or I should say, I haven't often seen rifles come with more than 1 magazine. Okay, well, how many magazines do you need? Once again, a personal decision. You notice that constantly comes up, a personal decision. But the truth of the matter is, you need more than 1. Why more than 1? Magazines are mechanical devices. They can fail. Some brands are better than other brands. So, you know, you always have to have at least, at an absolute minimum, 1 more. How many should you have total? You know, my rule of thumb is no matter how many I have, I only need 10 more. That's a bit extreme, but that's just me. But the reason I think that way is I'm old enough to remember the assault weapons ban. Back before that ban started, you only had GI magazines essentially, for the most part, and they weren't made to the highest quality, and it was known that some brands were better than other brands, and it was natural that they go bad after a while. Well, you know, during that ban, keeping a number of functional that I'm willing to bet my life magazines on was kind of difficult, and they were very expensive. You know, now 30-round magazines at the time of this video is published are pretty affordable, and they're at the point where you can afford to stock up on a lot of them. Matter of fact, if you go to a gun show, you're usually going to find a PMag for your AR-15 right around the $10 range. So there you go, $100, you got 10 mags, for example. How many do you need? You may never use more than 2 or 3 out of that 10 mags in your practice, but at least you have them should you need them. Because as I have found at competition, you know, you can be going, get totally into the competition, be all out of breath when it's over, and you know, you're rushing to get to the next stage, and at the beginning of the stage, you had to do a magazine change, or you had to clear your weapon, and you just threw the magazine down because you didn't want to fiddle with it, and now you've walked off and lost a magazine, and don't even realize it. And to be cool, at a competition, most people are cool, and they try to find the owner of that magazine. Everybody has a black PMag, so, and more than one person's lost one, so finding its way back to you just might be bad luck and not happen. I've also seen things where people have trained in the woods, forgot to close the lid on their magazine pouch, and out goes the magazine. You're never going to find it again in the underbrush or the tall grass. So that's one of the reasons you need more than 1. To close out, new shooter, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you here. We hope you watch a lot of videos. Don't take everything I say as gospel. There's a lot of people on YouTube putting out videos about firearms. Take in as much information as you can so you can make an informed decision that fits your needs.